Hello friends, so today's video is going to basically be some complaining about some trends with books or just some bookish pet peeves that I think a lot of us have. I've done a couple of other videos like this in the past, so a lot of the really common ones like mid-series cover change or when the audiobook chapters don't line up with the physical book chapters, those kinds of things, I have talked quite a bit about those. And by talked, I mean whined about those a fair amount in the past. So these ones I would say are maybe a hint more modern, or these are things I have found out as I have become more interested in, behind the scenes with books or just things I've noticed as of late. So anyway, I wanted to go through them just because every now and then it's fun to basically blow off some steam about trivial things. I'll have the previous videos I've done linked down below, but jumping into it today, the first thing, my friends Jess and Jashana brought this to my attention. So you know how there will be what I call permanent stickers on books. So it'll say like now a major motion picture or, Jenna's book club book or something like that. And you're like, why is this here? And especially when it's permanent and you can't actually take it off. I know my copy of Way of Kings, which is this way down there, has one of those like bonus content inside or something like that. And I'm like, I don't make it a temporary sticker, and then I can know that information. And then once I know that information, I know it. I don't need that sticker there forever and always. But anyway, that's something a lot of us have frustrations over. But the new one that is apparently happening is a sticker that says something like, as seen on TikTok. I want to clarify, I have nothing against the TikTok tables that are in bookstores. I don't mind either that so many people are falling back in love with reading because of TikTok. I think that's really great. Anytime that you can get people excited about reading, I think that's a lovely thing. So it's not a diss at the fact that it's referencing TikTok. I think it's great that people are getting book recommendations from TikTok. I don't get why you would want to pick up a book and then be like, oh, good, it's talked about on TikTok. Like, I don't need the reverse. If social media makes you aware of a book series and then you go on the hunt for that book, that's great. You don't need this like, congratulations, this is indeed the book that you saw on TikTok. Like, I'm not going to go and be like, what's this book about? And then see if it sounds interesting and then look at the front and be like, it's from TikTok, so I for sure want to pick it up now. I mean, just, I don't understand the point of that. Is that actually working? I understand the TikTok tables, like I said, because it's kind of like, this is what's popular with the young folks, or this is what's talked about on social media, this is what's popular. That I get, but again, that's like a table, that's a display. And I'm kind of just going to be repeating myself, so I should probably move on from this one. But I don't like stickers in general, but at least with the now a major motion picture, you can be like, oh cool, there's a movie or something, or there's a TV show. So then after you've read it, you can check out the show if you had no idea. But I'm never going to be like, because I saw that sticker, I'm going to go look for stuff on TikTok. I'm just never going to do that. The next one, I know a lot of us have seen this before, and it's when you'll get a special edition of the first book in a series and then not the rest of the series. This bums me out so much. So I kind of understand, but at the same time, I'm like, well, but from a consumer perspective. So where I'm going with this is on the publishing side, or whoever's making these special editions, whether it's a publishing house or it's some kind of a book box or something like that. Sometimes they'll only sell the first book in a series and see how well it does, and then they'll release the rest of the series. And the reason they do that, I understand, is because obviously it's going to cost them so much more initially if they commit to an entire series, especially if it's a longer series, right? So they don't want to commit to this really long series and then lose a bunch of money because only a handful of people are interested. I understand that, but am I the only one that sometimes doesn't want to buy that first special edition because I'm waiting to see if they're going to announce the rest? Does that make sense? Because for me, I'm often like, okay, well, I'll just throw out a book, just some random book. The first book that came to mind was a standalone. So obviously that doesn't make sense. Let's use Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I've hyped this series up a lot this year and last year a little bit. But either way, if Ninth Reign, if it was announced, which it needs to happen, just throwing that out there, but if it was announced that Ninth Reign was getting a special edition, I would be so excited. But then I'd be like, well, are they going to do a special edition for the second and the third books in the series? Because I don't know that I want just one special. I want the set. So sometimes I feel like maybe the reason that it's not selling out whenever whoever is making this special edition, the reason it might not be selling out when you just put out one is because people are waiting to know if you're going to put out the rest. But if you're waiting to see how well that sells before you announce the rest or determine if you're even going to make the rest, then we're just kind of sitting in this limbo a little bit. And it bums me out because there have been times where I think a book is gorgeous and I want that edition, and then I'm like, literally never, I need to see the rest. So I feel like a perfect example of one that actually does exist, the Witcher series. It's so difficult to find an entire set in English of the Witcher series. That's why currently the only edition I have that's the entire series is the Polish edition, because the English editions are the video game art, and granted, the video game is how I came to know Witcher, but the video game takes place after the events of the books. It's kind of like a what if scenario. So the images on the books have nothing to do with the content in the books, right? Which is why I don't love those editions, even though I do like the artwork. So I know the Netflix cover that's come out is actually pretty great, but I'm like, are you gonna release more? Because... And then the Barnes & Noble exclusive of Red Rising, same thing, where I was like, that's a great edition. Are you gonna release the next two? You get the point. But am I the only one? Like I said, am I the only one that waits to find out? And then I'm bummed when it feels like it's my fault that it didn't get a next one because of people like me. This next one, I don't actually mind books that have these kinds of titles, but I just think that we maybe need to move away from this. And it's the A Blank of Blank and Blank. I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Shadow of What Was Lost, Children of Blood and Bone, A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. There's just so many titles like that now. And I actually do like the flow of a title like that. It's a little long, but that's okay. A Shadow of What Was Lost, I think, is a great title also. But I just think that you start to lose the uniqueness, or you new to a certain genre. Like a lot of these are in fantasy. So people who are new to fantasy, I feel like the chances of them mixing up the titles are probably pretty high. Maybe that's a silly thing. But I'm ready for that not to be a trend anymore. I think we are coming away from it. But I've been seeing like She Who Became the Sun or She Who Rides the Storm. I've been seeing that sort of title, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with just one-word titles. But this leads me into my next, I guess you could say, pet peeve. I discovered, and I kind of had heard this before, but just hearing it from an author it just really bothered me. So when I interviewed Rosaria Munda, who is the author of Fireborn and Flamefall, she was saying that she doesn't really have a say in the titles. I believe she had a say in the third book's title, but the first one, for sure, she didn't. And that's not totally uncommon. A lot of authors don't get to decide the title of their book. And I understand if the marketing team's like, that's a terrible title, or that title's been done, or that sounds too much like this. I understand them kind of guiding you. But when you don't really have a say in your own work's title, that to me, that really rubs me the wrong way. And I wish that self-publishing was respected a little bit more, because I think that those sorts of things, of course, you have more creative control. There's so many pros and cons to both traditionally publishing and self-publishing, but that's one area that I'm like, hey, can publishers maybe ease up and in general, maybe let authors have a little bit more say in certain things? But I know that's a very specific and in the grand scheme of things not as important as other issues in publishing thing, but it just bothers me a little bit. The next one, does anybody else, I really need to know if anybody else isn't a fan of this. The covers that are not big enough. And by that I mean it'll be a paperback, and then the book comes, this is where the end of the book is, and then the cover comes to here, and then there's just a page underneath, and I'm like, why? What's the point of that? Why don't you make a cover that goes all the way? A good example would be the Lunar Chronicles. Maybe I'll come around to it, maybe someday, because I used to not like sprayed edges, and now I love sprayed edges. So maybe at some point I'll be like, I like the texture and dimension it adds. Maybe I'll change my mind, but currently I'm always like, was it way cheaper to leave out that like quarter of an inch from the cover? Another cover one that is frustrating to me, this is, I guess, nobody's fault really, but when you have a book sleeve, the dust jacket, and it's not aligned, so it has a very clear, this is the spine image, and then this is the front cover image, this is the back cover image, and it's shifted so that the spine is like partially on the front cover. Oh my gosh, I have a especially personal reason for disliking this, and that's that whenever I would order copies of my book to sell signed editions, which I don't do anymore, in case anyone's wondering, but when I would sell signed editions and I would order in bulk, there were so many times that the sleeves were so unaligned. When I'd get a box of, I don't know, however many books, right? Let's say I got a box of 15 books. And I swear it would be like 3 to 5 out of 15. And some of them I could kind of tweak to where they eventually lined up, but some of them were so bad that I was like, there's no way I can correct this without there being such an obvious crease in a different part. And I can't sell this, and it's so frustrating. And I know it happens to other books too. And when you order a book and you're all excited, and then you open it and it's all messed up, it's especially irksome. This last one is not one that I dislike necessarily. It's more so that I'm curious your opinions. What are your opinions on pocketbooks? So I know I've seen, there's a pocketbook edition of The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. I think there's pocketbook editions of Sarah J. Maas books now. You know what I'm talking about. They're mini, they're really tiny. And I'm like, I don't understand that, because we have trade paperbacks, which are great for if you really want to, if you don't care too much about your book getting bent or those sorts of things. They're definitely fun to literally read, like physically read. But pocketbooks, the reason that I currently lean towards I'm not the biggest fan is because how much money do you think goes into reprinting already popular books in mini sizes, which is not ideal, I feel like, as a reader, but how much money do you think goes into that instead of, I don't know, putting more marketing into lesser known authors and giving them a better chance of having success, or signing more authors instead of, I don't know, I think it feels to me like a cash grab a little bit. And they're cute. I guess they do save space, so maybe if you have a limited amount of space, I can see why you might enjoy those, or maybe you just think they're precious because they're tiny. But yeah, currently I'm not the biggest fan. But I think it's possible I could be swayed on that one. So if you have reasons why you think those are awesome, let me know. Let me know what some bookish pet peeves are that you have, or some trends that you're not the biggest fan of. Like I said, I have done this before, and I have talked about a lot of other ones. So if you need to just hear some venting about some other frustrating trends, that'll be there for you. Thanks so much for watching, though. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.